Oath Keepers. Not on our watch.
Hello, my name is Sam Andrews. I am one of the leaders of a group of Oath Keepers in Missouri. We have had an ongoing issue in a small town of Ferguson, which is located in St. Louis County. We're into our second year of problems there with civil unrest and violence and police actions that are unlawful. Right now, we have a police chief. His name is Chief Belmer. This man has been ordering his police officers to do unconstitutional things like confiscate guns in violation of state law. He continues to ignore the Constitution. He continues to ignore our Missouri law, Missouri Revised Statute 44.101, which does not allow police officers or government agents to confiscate weapons or ammo from citizens in time of emergency. Right now, we have a state of emergency in Ferguson declared by our St. Louis County executive. And Belmer is openly telling the media that he's looking into the legality of men open carrying firearms in Ferguson. These people in Ferguson have a right to protect themselves. Oath Keepers have a right to protect reporters. And they are in violation of state law trying to prevent us from carrying weapons, from protecting ourselves, our property, and our liberty. This is an ongoing problem with the police chief and his men. Now, a lot of good police officers are getting bad direction from the management, and this is an ongoing problem in St. Louis County Police. Last year, over Thanksgiving, when there was all the violence after the grand jury announcement about the Michael Brown decision, our police chief took orders from the Department of Justice and ordered his men not to arrest arsonists and looters. In other words, watch these criminals burn your businesses, burn your homes, burn your apartments, and steal from you, and do nothing. In other words, the Department of Justice ordered Belmer to order his men to stand down and to not arrest arsonists and looters, to not do what the taxpayers paid them millions of dollars to do. This is unlawful action by our police chief. It's criminal endangerment. And honestly, we need to replace him. He needs to step down as chief. He needs to resign. He hasn't shown the leadership to solve this problem. And that's why the violence problem in Ferguson is ongoing.
Can you tell us about what happened over the beginning of this week that is in the news cycle right now?
Yeah, the latest cycle of violence revolves around the anniversary of the shooting of Michael Brown. And protesters started to gather in front of the police station and the firehouse. They were hurtling bricks and bottles at the police officers. There was a location on West Florissant 911 hair salon in that building right and around that building right in that location where there was a looting and some shooting between two rival factions in Ferguson. The police responded to the violence. The violent perpetrators responded by firing at the police. The police chased down one of the men that was shooting at them and eventually shot him, apprehended him, and he's now in critical condition in Barnes Hospital. Our men last night went to guard two reporters from InfoWars. We walked with them to watch their back. And the reason we chose to do that was because just the night before, two St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporters had been attacked and severely injured and are now in the hospital. And so we all thought it wise to move as a group with protection. And we offered Joe Biggs and Jakari Jackson security for their first round of reporting last night. And apparently that offended Chief Belmer, and he came out today in the media with all kinds of inflammatory and untrue statements. The truth is, when our men got there last night, everything calmed down. The crowds calmed down, the police calmed down, and we brought an incredible level of peace to the situation where Belmer outright lied in his media comments and said that we inflamed the tensions between the two groups, and that was actually the opposite of what happened. As a matter of fact, after we'd been there about an hour, things were so calm, that police started leaving and protesters started leaving.
Now, you were not hired to protect them. You just offered to have their six in this.
No, we're not paid. Oath Keepers don't act on payment. They're not mercenaries. Oath Keepers are grown men and women that understand their civil responsibility to protect each other, their life, liberty, and property. And we always do the right thing, and no one's ever compensated with money for that. That's just something we do because it's a responsibility to our republic.
Now, you and your team are highly trained. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, all of our members that we deploy with in Ferguson have tremendous experience. We have a variety of skill sets that we've used, from paramedics to Air Force pararescue to Air Force JTACs to Navy SEALs to MARSOC Marines to police officers to SWAT officers to police academy instructors. These are really senior, skilled, experienced men that we go into Ferguson with, much more skilled on average than a typical police officer in St. Louis County.
Now, you were involved with Ferguson last year when the protests and riots first erupted. Can you tell us a little bit about your role in that situation?
Yes, in the situation last year, we got a request for help from some of the local business people and some of the people living in the apartments above the buildings. What happened was, when the violence broke out Monday night, there were over 27 buildings burnt to the ground. There were over 120 buildings lit on fire. There were over 600 buildings damaged, vandalized, and stolen from. And so we went up there on Tuesday morning and helped the people of Ferguson board up their businesses, the windows, the apartments. And then Tuesday evening, we began a security operation with men on the roofs of the businesses protecting the apartments that were on the second floor and the people sleeping inside. And our basic strategy was to have a fireman and an operator standing side by side so that we could combat arson, we could combat drive-by shootings, we could combat vandalism and Molotov cocktails and flares and the things they were throwing on the flat tar roofs to burn the buildings down. And so we were there for the better part of 3 weeks protecting those people until the protesters left and the violence subsided.
You were thanked by the community after that, weren't you?
The community of Ferguson loves the Oath Keepers. Last night, in fact, our friends that we met from last year were running up to us and hugging us and saying, "We're so glad you're here. It's great to see you. Things really calmed down when you guys showed up." And we built relationships with people in Ferguson, and we still talk on the phone. We still text on the phone to each other, and we stay in contact. And the people of Ferguson were, last year, after the third day, were driving by in their cars, honking their horns, waving at us, saying, "We love you, Oath Keepers. Thank you for helping. Thank you for being here. We love you. Please don't leave." And we were getting comments like that every 2 minutes from people driving by. So the actual reception from the community was incredibly positive. It was also positive from the local police there. Where it wasn't positive was from the Department of Justice, the federal arm involved in the process, and from the leadership of the St. Louis County Police and from the Highway Patrol leadership. They did not want us there. And they made that apparent, threatened to take our guns and do all kinds of illegal things that aren't allowed by Missouri state law. And we stood our ground, and ultimately we won.
Well, I definitely want to say thank you for your service and just putting yourself on the line there. Obviously, you're doing the right thing. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yes, I think that the public needs to be aware of the fact that city, state, and federal governments are routinely violating not only our constitutional laws and our federal laws and our constitutional rights, our God-given rights that are enumerated in the Constitution. They're violating those on a daily basis, but they're also violating our state laws and our local laws. And it's very important that we educate ourselves about our local and state laws so that we can hold these unlawful police chiefs and unlawful sheriffs accountable for their behavior. And that's an education process. So know your local laws, know your state laws, and know your God-given rights, and have enough spine to stand up to these criminals that try to run roughshod over you as a human being. It's well worth it. It's something that will preserve liberty for your children and grandchildren. And I'd rather deal with the issue now than have my grandchildren have to fight this issue down the road.